Chapter 20. Run. Halsted. Emerson swirled the liquid in her glass, looking around the bar before glancing back at Jimmy, who sat in front of her. So? She trailed off, swallowing harshly. She tried to kiss you and you got caught by Patterson? Jimmy sighed, nodding. Yeah, but it was weird. It's like Chili knew it was wrong and she was just trying to get in trouble or something. Then she just laughed it off and left it like that. Emerson let out a sigh of exasperation. Did she say something to you? Or did she just try to kiss you out of the blue? She was talking about having fun, no strings attached, being better, and everything. Jimmy trailed off, feeling like he was putting a wedge between the two paramedics, but at the same time, he didn't want to hide it from Emerson. Something's definitely wrong with her. The whole story was that Jimmy was in the locker room, changing after a shower when Chili came on to him, telling him that a no-strings-attached thing was much more fun than actually committing. She admitted that she had a thing for him, which wasn't really surprising to Emerson, considering the way she'd been acting. Then she tried to lean in to kiss Jimmy, only for Patterson to interrupt them and give them a warning. Her eyebrows rose, completely agreeing with him. She didn't know Chili much, but all of it seemed out of character. You tell me. Their conversation was cut short by Dawson yelling out Herman's name from the back of the bar. Emerson and Jimmy immediately stood up and rushed towards the back, only to see Otis rushing out and grab a phone. Emerson slipped past him and went towards Gabby, who was kneeling on the floor next to a bleeding Herman. "Oh my God," she exclaimed, grabbing a few more clean and dry cloths and handing them to Gabby. "What the hell happened?" "Freddie stabbed him. He ran." Gabby shortly explained, applying pressure on the wound until the paramedics arrived. Herman had been nice enough to offer Freddie a job after Cruz told them the boy wanted out of the gang life. Him stabbing Herman was a surprise, but not completely unexpected. The paramedics brought Herman away to the hospital and Gabby jumped in with them. At Chicago Med, he was immediately taken care of by April and Dr. Rhodes while Gabby stood back and watched until everyone else could get there. We have given Herman several units of blood, and he's stabilized for now. The knife went through his liver, diaphragm, and lung. So we've put a tube into his chest to reinflate the lung and to help him breathe. We're hopeful that the bleeding has stopped, since we don't see anything on the CT. Dr. Rhodes explained to everyone sitting in the waiting room, nervous about their friend's state. "When will you know?" Cindy questioned. "Well, the next several hours are critical. Cindy, you can come with me to see him. Come on." He led her to her husband, while the rest of them stayed in the waiting room all night. In the morning, Gabby and Mouch were allowed to see him, but when Gabby saw his vitals moving, she decided it was best to let him rest. Before they went back home to get ready for shift, Adam came by the hospital to speak with Cruz, who gave him as much information as he could. "We missed you at the hospital." Emerson spoke as she walked up to Chili, who was already sitting at the table in the common room, playing on her phone. "Oh yeah, I couldn't make it. I had a lot of stuff that I had to take care of. I'm gonna go later, though," she told her, barely looking up at her. Emerson decided not to confront her about what she did the day before, figuring it wouldn't do either of them any good. "Well, Herman's hanging in there. It's just wait and see right now," she added, placing her plate down on the table as she sat down. "Yeah, I heard. You okay?" She frowned, having an idea of why she was so short, but was hoping Chili would actually open up about it. "Well, Herman's making progress, right? So I'm not going to get freaked out about it." Chili almost spat, abruptly standing up and walking away to avoid getting questioned anymore. And Emerson raised her eyebrows and sighed heavily, shrugging it off and focusing on her food instead. Truck 81, Squad 3, Ambulance 61, House Fire, 5598 West Carroll. 2 victims were brought out of the fire. One was able to walk and the other was found unconscious. The firefighters placed the male victim on the paramedics' gurney, letting them work on him as Chief Bowden questioned the woman. "Get 'em both on oxygen. Get an IV going on that one." Chili spoke up, receiving a nod from Emerson to let her know she heard her loud and clear. The man gasped, regaining consciousness. He caught Emerson's attention when he grabbed at the oxygen mask, trying to take it off of him. "My boy, my son, he's inside." He let them know, hearing the chief give orders to his teams. The man tried to stand up, most likely wanting to go get his boy, but Bowden and Emerson pushed him back down so he wouldn't get hurt. "We'll get your boy. Let her take care of you," Chief ordered, gesturing to Emerson, who started working on him right away. "Alex, Alex," the man called out as Cruz walked out with his boy, who immediately ran towards him. As they hugged, Chief went to talk to Casey over the radio right as the basement exploded. They worriedly waited for them, only to see them walk out with a female victim seconds later. They settled the man on another ambulance's gurney so they could bring him to the hospital while 61 took the unconscious woman. "What we got?" Emerson asked as Casey, Bowden, and Gabby carried the woman over to them. "She's alive, barely. Gas inhalation, possible suicide attempt," Lieutenant Casey explained, giving as much detail as he could to the paramedics. "Her pulse is really weak, pinpoint pupils," Chili pointed out as the first woman to have been brought out approached. "Jessica?" she weakly said. "You know her?" Bowden asked her. "Jessica Pope, apartment 2B. We got to get her to med right now," Emerson called, packing everything up as Chili lifted and pushed the gurney inside the rig. Emerson heard coughing, and when she raised her head, she noticed it was Cruz, leaning against the fire truck. "Cruz, you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine," he stated, although his next cough led him to wheeze, which immediately let her know that he was not fine. "All right, you're coming with us. Let's go to med," she answered, worried about him. "I'm fine." He waved her away, the interaction catching Bowden's attention. "Let's see what a doctor says about that." The chief intervened, not giving him much of a choice with the matter. "Let's go." Emerson led him to the ambulance, letting Chili put him on oxygen while she shut the doors and went straight to the driver's seat. She rushed them to the hospital so they could get treated as fast as possible. After visiting Herman, Chili and Emerson were walking out of the hospital through the ER when Ethan Choi stopped them. "Hey, guys, wanted to ask you about this suicide attempt, Jessica Pope. She's a bit of a mystery. Has no relatives we can get a hold of. No one in the building seems to know much." Yeah, happy to help." Emerson nodded, arms crossed over her chest. "Well, she hasn't regained consciousness yet, and we're trying to figure out why. Did you guys need to sedate her to intubate?" he asked, genuinely trying to understand. Emerson began before Chili cut her off. "We didn't mess up, if that's what you're implying." She spat at the doctor, clearly insulted by his innocent words. "Not at all, just trying to make sense of her condition." Dr. Choi answered her calmly, even if she spoke to him with a defensive tone. "And if we sedated her, it'd be in the paperwork." Emerson was surprised Chili would speak that way to a doctor. When her partner spoke to her that way, she let it slide because she could handle it, and she understood that some days were harder than others. But speaking like that to someone else? Emerson didn't understand. "Sometimes things fall through the cracks. I'm just being diligent," he assured her, turning his attention back to Emerson, who seemed more open to actually help. Chili turned away and walked off. "Yeah, victim inhaled a lot of gas on the scene, completely unresponsive. We didn't have to sedate to intubate." Emerson gave him the whole story. "Got it? Thanks." "No problem." She sent him an apologetic smile, turning away once he was gone to walk up to Chili. "Hey, what's going on with you? Why are you jumping down my throat? He's accusing us of screwing up the paperwork." Chili accused her, stepping up to her. "He asked a question," Emerson sternly answered. "Okay, fine. All good then." Emerson raised her eyebrows at Chili's tone, watching her shrug it off and walk away. The paramedic sighed, taking a few seconds before following her partner out of the hospital so they could head back to the firehouse. Jimmy and Emerson stood next to the coffee machine, talking about what happened previously between the paramedics at the hospital. Emerson grabbed herself a cup of water right as Matt answered a call from Gabby, putting everyone on edge as they waited to hear. He had a bad reaction to the transfusions. They got him stable for now, but it looks like the bleeding hasn't stopped. "So what are they going to do?" Cruz asked, desperate. Everyone knew he felt bad about everything that happened, since he was the one who brought in Freddie. Truth be told, Emerson felt bad for him. It wasn't his fault, but he wouldn't believe anyone who told him so. "They're not sure yet," Matt admitted, and luckily for them, the alarm blared with a call, helping them keep their minds off of it. Truck 81, Squad 3, Ambulance 61, person trapped, South Rockwell and 44th Street. When they got there, the firefighters started getting ready to help a victim that was stuck on a fire escape. Looking closer, crews immediately recognized him, and it clicked in everyone's minds when Jay Halstead and Adam Ruzek approached crews. North Avenue boys were hiding him. You must have flushed him out when you went down there. Adam told him, very aware of Cruz's visit to the gang earlier in the day. We've been out here beating the bushes. Once he surfaced, we were on him. Chased him across a couple of the rooftops, and then, well, he ended up there. Jay explained, his eyes glancing around until they stopped on a certain paramedic. She was already looking straight at him. For one, she was curious about what was going on, and two, she wanted to at least acknowledge his presence. They shared a smile and a nod before focusing back on their work. Cruz insisted to go up there himself, telling Chief that he wanted to fix his mistake and make things right. He didn't want to at first, but in the end, he decided to let him go, figuring that everyone would be around to give a hand anyway. Emerson was focused on the scene, her arms crossed over her chest as she worriedly watched the scene in front of her. Eventually, she heard and felt someone approached, stopping right next to her. The paramedic turned, smiling at the person. Cruz insisted to go up there himself, telling Chief that he wanted to fix his mistake and make things right. He didn't want to at first, but in the end, he decided to let him go, figuring that everyone would be around to give a hand anyway. Emerson was focused on the scene, her arms crossed over her chest as she worriedly watched the scene in front of her. Eventually, she heard and felt someone approached, stopping right next to her. The paramedic turned, smiling at the person. Hey, normal day for Firehouse 51, Jay teased, smiling right back at her. She playfully scoffed. You're one to talk, Detective Halstead, who works in the most elite unit of the Chicago Police Department. She joked, bumping her hip with his. He laughed, shrugging. How've you been? It's been a minute. Pretty good. Heard about Herman and all. You okay? Jay asked, keeping his eyes fixed on the scene in front of them, ready to jump in as soon as Freddie touched the ground. Ask that again when he's out of the woods. She simply answered, tapping his shoulder as she noticed Cruz helping Freddie down from the ladder. Your turn to shine, Detective. He shook his head, letting out a subtle scoff as he walked away smiling. She watched him cuff the young boy and bring him back over to Emerson so she could check him out. She quickly did so. He's all yours. She nodded politely at Jay, letting him walk away with the boy under everyone's stares. Emerson was never one to wish for the worst to happen on someone, but she did wish that he would get punished for what he did to Herman. Luckily for them all, things got a little worse for Herman before they got better. He got brought into surgery, but the doctors were able to fix him, and a few weeks later, he was back into work. For his first day, they planned a little surprise for him, acting like they didn't care until they brought a large banner with a welcome back message written on him. Everyone went back to their own occupations after greeting him, mostly eating breakfast and all. Emerson walked into the locker room with Chili's radio in hand, stopping when she heard her talking to Jimmy. She couldn't really make out the words that were said, but she could tell it wasn't a pleasant conversation. The paramedic walked up to Chili right as she shut her locker. You left your radio in the common room. She harshly grabbed it from her partner's hands. Thanks. Chili walked away without another word, leaving both Emerson and Jimmy stunned. What the hell happened? She asked Jimmy, and right as he was about to respond, an alarm went off. All personnel report to the common room immediately. They were alerted that Chicago was now under a tornado warning and that all residents were advised to seek shelter right away by the local news. Everyone was immediately on their toes, knowing it was going to be a long shift. Ambulance 61, woman collapsed, 121 South LaSalle Street. Emerson rushed to the ambo, watching Cruz opening the garage door for them as he waved, telling them to stay safe. The streets of Chicago were completely empty, making shivers run up Emerson's back. It was far from what they were used to. God, it's like everyone just vanished. Chili muttered as she looked out the window. You know, I had this boyfriend in high school for like 5 minutes, and he was obsessed with zombie movies like Romero stuff. Scared the crap out of me. It was just the thought. You can just wake up one morning, and the world as you know it is just over. Chili's somber thoughts and words made Emerson slightly worried, but there wasn't much she could say. They arrived on scene shortly after, walking into an empty restaurant. "Fire department!" Emerson called out as there was no one in sight. "Back here!" They heard from afar as a man appeared from the back of the place, guiding them towards the person in need of help. The woman was down on the floor, convulsing. "How long has it been going on?" Emerson questioned, settling down on one side of the woman while Chili did the same on the other side. On and off for about 10 minutes. The man told them, slightly panicked. Was anybody with her? Know her medical history? Anything? Chili asked. No, she was alone. The man informed them. The news said to take shelter, so we all just came back here. All right, she doesn't have a medical alert bracelet. I'll start the IV, you drop the Valium. Emerson spoke, both of them getting straight to work. Although Emerson was so focused on the IV that she didn't notice Chili spacing out while grabbing the Valium. The woman stopped convulsing, which was the normal effect of the medication. But what wasn't normal was that she wasn't breathing anymore. She's not breathing, Emerson stated, checking her for a pulse. How much did you drop? 10 milligrams. Chili answered harshly, leading to Emerson grabbing the vial from Chili's hands to see what exactly she gave her. Morphine sulfate. Is this what you gave her? Yes, Chili told her, unaware that it wasn't the right medication. It's morphine, she told her in a hushed tone so the people around them wouldn't hear as Chili grabbed it from her hands to look at it herself. Emerson listened with her stethoscope for any breathing sounds in her lungs. She's still not breathing. The morphine suppressed her respiratory drive. Chili looked at her panicked and unable to do anything. Chili? Emerson exclaimed, waiting for her pick to do something, anything, to fix her mistake. When she didn't move, Emerson lunged forward and grabbed the vial of Narcan by herself. She pushed it in with the right dosage, hoping it would do the trick. Luckily for them, the woman inhaled deeply shortly after, and Chili finally snapped out of it. Respiration's up to 14. Let's get her out of here before she starts seizing again. Is she going to be okay? The man from before asked them, worried about the woman. She'll be fine, Emerson assured him, helping Chili get the woman up on the gurney so they could get out of there as fast as possible. Once they were out of earshot, Emerson jumped at the opportunity to question her. What the hell just happened? I swear I grabbed the Valium. Chili defended herself. I always put it in the right place. Chili's relaxed and laid-back tone made Emerson fume as she couldn't possibly understand how she wasn't taking it more seriously. You check the label. You always check the label. Relax. Chili stopped her, opening the door for them. Everything turned out fine. Emerson frowned at her, controlling herself so she wouldn't snap at her partner before rolling the patient out of the building and into the ambulance. At the hospital, Chili and Emerson went up to the nurse's station and greeted the woman standing behind the desk. We need a restock request for Ambulance 61, Chili asked, handing her said request as Emerson carefully watched. Morphine. Patient's paperwork doesn't list that anywhere. The nurse pointed out after reading it. Emerson's wide eyes spoke volumes, but Chili cut her off before she could say anything. She was seizing in the ambulance ride over here, and I was reaching for the Valium, and I accidentally knocked over the morphine and broke the seal. The nurse looked at Chili suspiciously, unsure if she trusted her story. Why is everyone so suspicious around here? The nurse sighed. Be back with these in a minute. Thank you. Chili sent the nurse a smile as she leant against the desk, shrugging when she noticed the glare Emerson sent her. The paramedic took a deep breath, keeping her comments for herself. They hurried out of the hospital when a call came in through their radios for damaged structures in a neighborhood in their district. They assumed it was from the tornado, so they hurried and joined Truck 81 and Squad 3 on scene. As soon as they heard Casey call for a medical assist, they rushed over to him. Matt was holding a teenage boy, keeping him still. You have a piece of glass in your back. You're in shock. Your body's protecting you from the pain. The lieutenant informed the boy as Emerson examined the wound while Chili opened their jump bag. Curlix and tape. Emerson called to Chili, holding her hand out. I got it, relax. Chili snapped, handing it to her. Casey immediately glanced at Emerson, who took in a deep breath and sent him a tight-lipped smile while grabbing the material from her partner. The firefighters helped people get out of one of the house's basement, while the paramedics took care of the kid. He informed them that he still couldn't see his parents, so Casey took matters in his own hands immediately. They successfully brought out both of his parents, letting them get checked out by Emerson and Chili. Emerson unloaded the rig back at the firehouse after they finished the call. The tornado warning had been lifted, which they were all very happy about. As she replaced the sheet over the gurney, footsteps walking towards her caught her attention. "Jay Halstead," she smiled. "Can't stay far away now, can you?" He shrugged, smiling right back at her. "I was in the neighborhood, helping with the tornado victims and all. Figured I'd stop by." "That's nice of you." Emerson fixed the sheet, watching as Jay reached for the other side to help. "Thanks." Jay found her voice different from usual, like it was more strained. "Everything okay?" he asked her, noticing how she stopped doing what she was doing altogether. Her hands dropped flat on the gurney as her head leant down. She sighed heavily before looking back up into his eyes. "Things with Chili have been pretty messy lately. I don't know exactly what's going on with her, but she keeps snapping at me and at everyone else," Emerson explained, finding that it felt good to let it out to someone else than Jimmy. Jay's eyebrows furrowed at the mention of her partner snapping at her. "And I swear to God, if she tells me to relax one more time, I'm gonna snap." The last part of her statement was said with a little more edge, making Jay slightly chuckle. "You wouldn't hurt a fly." She scoffed, reaching over the gurney that separated them to slap his chest. "Tell me to relax, and you'll see what I'm capable of." Emerson pointed a warning finger at him as a smile broke through. Jay laughed, leaving a few seconds of silence before focusing back on what was bothering her. "I take it she's not doing too well after what happened to her sister." Emerson frowned, confused. "You don't know? Chili's sister was found dead in Kansas City a few weeks back." Emerson's breath got caught in her throat, surprised by the news. She felt for her partner, and she wished Chili would have told her. "I didn't know. At first I thought it was about Jimmy and I, that she was jealous. She's so distracted that she's making mistakes out in the field and—" Emerson sighed heavily. "But it makes sense now." Jay took a deep breath in, understanding her worries. "Are you going to tell your chief about it?" From the sigh that escaped her lips, he figured she didn't want to. "Maybe you should." Jay saw her lips move as if she was going to talk, and he knew she was most probably going to disagree with him, so he continued. You two are out there on the streets alone. You don't think your partner has your back. You can't do your job. She needs help, and from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like she's going to seek it. Don't wait until you're the one paying the price." Emerson's eye watered from his words, feeling the emotions she kept buried in the past few weeks resurface. She took a deep breath, and Jay immediately noticed her emotional stance, walking around the gurney to wrap his arms around her. She leaned her head on his chest, throwing her own arms around his body as she focused on her breathing. "Thanks, Jay." She thanked him as they pulled away, her eyes moving up to his immediately. "I'm glad you came by. I'll take your advice under consideration." "That's what friends are for." He winked at her, smiling widely as he took a step back. "I gotta go. Let me know if you need help to relax," he teased, smirking as he saw her face drop into a more serious expression. "Run, Halstead." By the end of shift, Emerson found Chili alone in the locker room, so she figured it was her chance to talk to her. "Hey." Chili was sitting on the bench, leaning forward with her eyes fixated on her phone. "Oh, hey, just 1 second." Emerson leaned against the lockers, waiting for Chili to pay attention to her before speaking. Do you want to go get a sandwich? The tornado warning's been lifted, and Jimmy's making meatloaf." Chili shook her head, turning her focus back on her phone. "No, I'm good." "Chili, I'm trying to talk to you." Emerson didn't want to confront her about what Jay told her. There had to be a reason why Chili wasn't telling her, and she didn't want to intrude on her privacy, so she tried a different approach. "About what?" The pitee deadpanned. Emerson crossed her arms over her chest, eyes widening in disbelief. "That woman almost died today. She kept her tone calm, knowing this conversation could go a million different ways. Yeah, but she didn't. It was over in like 30 seconds. Emerson couldn't believe her. There was no way she didn't feel the slightest bad about it. You put her life in danger, and then you lied about it. It was a mistake, and we handled it. I handled it. You froze. Emerson corrected, staring directly into her eyes. All she wanted was for her to admit that what she did was wrong and own up to it. That's all Emerson needed to believe that Chili was going to do better next time, maybe even get the help she needed. But Chili faked a smile, turning back to her phone. Okay, if you want the credit, it's all yours. Emerson scoffed in disbelief. Hey, I'm going out tomorrow night with a couple guys from River North. You want to come? One of them's kind of your type. Emerson shook her head, asking herself how could her partner be so deep in her denial as to not see how serious the situation was. I'm good. Plus, Chili knew Emerson was involved with Jimmy. There was no way she'd agree to meeting someone else. Chili chuckled. Okay, your loss. 2-for-1 margaritas, just saying. She walked away, leaving Emerson dumbfounded. With the way the conversation went, Emerson decided to go to Bowden about it before he'd leave the firehouse. She sat in his office, explaining to him the situation while making sure he knew she wasn't trying to get Chili in trouble. She was just worried about her partner, and she wanted things to go back to the way they were. All she wanted was to help her. Bowden wouldn't share with her what were going to be the consequences of Chili's actions. Instead, he dismissed her and let her go home. Emerson accepted it, going home with a nervous but less filled mind. On the next shift, now that Bowden knew about Chili's sister, Jellybean, and the Pic's behavior, he decided to meet with her about it. He suggested for her to take time off, which she refused. Bowden then decided to stop beating around the bush, telling her directly that he knew about her pushing the wrong meds. He gave her a second strike, letting her know that the third would be the last. Truck 81, Squad 3, Engine 51, Ambulance 61. Vehicle fire, 2700 block of Roosevelt Avenue. The vehicle in question ended up being a bus full of passengers, which led Bowden to call for an EMS Plan 2, meaning all available ambulances were going to be sent to them. Ambulance 61 was in charge of triage, evaluating the state of every victim. Chili ignored Emerson the whole time, glaring at her whenever she had the occasion. Emerson figured Bowden had spoken to her and that she didn't take it well, which was understandable, but Emerson wished it would have encouraged her to make things right. With a knot in her stomach and a rapid heartbeat, Emerson approached Chili, who was sitting in the back of the ambulance filing paperwork. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about. You're going to rat me out to Bowden and then come over here and try to apologize to me? Emerson was taken by surprise by her words, although she should have figured that's how she would react. I meant about what happened to your sister. Chili jumped out of the ambulance, walking up to Emerson. What do you know about it? Well, nothing. Exactly, because it's none of your business. Chili spat, walking away from her. Emerson took a deep breath and sighed, shaking her head to herself. Gabby, who had also heard the news about Chili's sister from Antonio, walked up to Emerson as soon as she saw her walking back inside the firehouse. Did you bring it up? Emerson chuckled dryly. Yeah, not a good subject, she told her, sighing as she leaned her back against the wall. Yeah, I heard it didn't go too hot with Bowden either, Gabby informed her. So I shouldn't say anything? Emerson rubbed her forehead. Oh no, she does not want to talk about it. They stayed silent for a few seconds before Emerson spoke up again. I have a bad feeling about things. It's like she's driving toward a cliff. Okay, Gabby said, hearing her friend's desperation. We'll figure this out, she assured her, squeezing her shoulder gently. Chili walked up to Emerson and Gabby, who were in the locker room, getting ready for shift. I owe you both an apology for jumping down your throats last shift and for just being a wreck in general. It's okay, Emerson smiled, glad that she seemed to be turning things around. Everybody grieves in their own way. Chili took off her bag silently, leading them to believe that she was leaving it at that. Alyssa was my best friend. She opened up, sitting down on the bench to face her. We were inseparable, especially after my mom bailed. In my freshman year of high school, she started dating this guy. I hated him. She wasn't the same. She completely changed, and nothing that my dad and I did could get through to her. And she ran away and was hooked on drugs, and then she got busted. And then that's when she started working as a CI. I don't know if Antonio or Jay told you that, but that's how they know her. Chili paused, eyes filled with tears as she turned to Gabby. Antonio got her out, and he got her to Kansas City, and we all thought that she was going to be good. She was missing for 3 days, and then her landlord found her face down in her apartment. I'm so sorry, Gabby softly spoke, sitting down in front of her. I know that I'm screwing up. I know that. I know that I have to get my act together, and I know that I've been on a bender, and I got sober up and just start taking everything seriously, Chili said, rubbing her nose with the back of her hand, sniffling. Well, we're here for you every step of the way, Emerson told her, relieved that her partner was finally taking accountability for her actions. Chili didn't say anything more. They just waited with her for a few minutes before going on with their days.